Hello everybody and welcome along to a brand new video, and well, we've still got quite a wait until Doctor Who Series 12, which is likely not coming until very early next year, but that doesn't mean we can't start theorising about it and saying what we want to see from Series 12 as it sort of is going through the production process as we speak. And today I just want to kind of give you guys my sort of thoughts on 5 things that I would love to see more of or see in Doctor Who Series 12. First off, apologies, I've got a horrible cold, so sorry my voice sounds a bit horrid, but hopefully in future videos it will have cleared up. I mean, the videos don't always release in the same order that I film them, so you might sort of suddenly see a video where I don't have a cold and then back to a video where I do have a cold again, so apologies if that is the case, but I hope you can still enjoy this video even with my rather horrible voice. But yes, Doctor Who Series 12, of course, we've had Series 11, the first series with Jodie Whittaker and Chris Chibnall running the show, and so they've got a second sort of bite at the cherry, a second shot at it for Series 12. But what 5 things would I like to see in Series 12? Well, let's get straight into it with number 1. So the first thing I'd like to see is something I'd like to see more of for Series 12. I'd love to see more returning monsters. Of course, it's probably a thing that every Doctor Who fan says about every single Doctor Who series, that we'd love to see more return of Daleks, Cybermen, Centaurans, Ice Warriors, Silurians, whatever. We'd love to see more of that coming back for future series, and so it's a little bit of, I guess, a generic one to say, but I also think that it's true. It is something that Doctor Who should do. Just look at Resolution, the New Year's Day special. That was, I think, one of the best stories of the series, certainly Chris Chibnall's best story that he wrote, and I think just got a lot of hype around it because there was a Dalek in it, the Daleks returned. That was really exciting, connecting the sort of new era back to the previous sort of series and eras of Doctor Who, I think is really, really important. I think Series 11 went a little bit too far away from the previous series, and it just needs a few more ties back to previous episodes and stories and series and eras of the show. And so by just introducing 1 or 2 episodes that have a returning monster in it, even if it is just a Dalek again, or a Cyberman, or a Centauran, I'd love a Centauran story back, a sort of Centauran 2-parter, wouldn't that be fantastic? But just introducing and sort of, yeah, more sort of stronger connections to the previous series of Doctor Who with those returning monsters, I think would make a big, big difference. So yes, assuming that it's a 10-episode series of Doctor Who next year, maybe if we could have 2 of those 10 episodes, whether it be a 2-parter or 2 individual episodes, that have a character or an alien or a villain from a previous series of Doctor Who, whether it be just the Daleks are back or something a bit more obscure from the classic series or whatever, I think it would just really kind of help engage fans a little bit more to see just a few more kind of familiar faces, almost as it were, familiar villains, or even a returning sort of good character or something like that. I think would be quite sort of nice. As I say, just to tie it back to previous series, and I think just get a bit more hype around the show as well. If you say the Cybermen are back, people will start theorising and getting excited about it, and I think that's what Doctor Who needs at the moment for Series 12. So that's something I really hope to see in the next series. Now the next thing, number 2, that I'd like to see return for Series 12, well, I'd like to see more guest-written episodes of Doctor Who. Of course, we saw the 10 episodes or 11 episodes of Series 11, if you include the special, and I think sort of 6 of them, or 6 or 7 of them, were written by Chris Chibnall. I don't hate Chris Chibnall as much as a lot of people do. I don't think he is the worst thing that's ever happened to the show and whatever, but there's no denying that a lot of his stories were the weaker stories of the series, and that the ones written by the guest writers, Demons of the Punjab, Kablam, even the Witchfinders, and of course It Takes You Away, all written by guest writers, and Rosa, which is written mostly by Mallory Blackman, they were all generally considered to be the strongest episodes of the series. So I think it would be a lot better, now that sort of the characters have been established, which is usually why the main writer writes a lot of, at the early part of a new Doctor's series. You look at Series 1, where Russell T Davies wrote episode 1, 2, 4, 5, 7, 12 and 13, 11, 12 and 13, he wrote more than half the series. And Stephen Moffat in Series 5, he wrote episodes 1, 2, 4 and 5, and then 12 and 13 as well. So he wrote a lot of the story, because you're just introducing and establishing the new era, new Doctor, new companion, everything like that. It needs sort of the lead writer to do that, I think. But now that that's all set out, the team's all the same, it gives an opportunity. Yeah, of course Chris is going to write episode 1, but why don't we not have him write another episode till the last episode, or the last sort of 2 episodes, or something like that? Let lots of different writers get involved in the show and bring their new fresh ideas to the programme, and then you don't have to put all the weight onto Chris, and hopefully then he would be able to produce better stories because he has got less to write. He can just kind of oversee the series as a whole, but maybe write episode 1, maybe write something in the middle, and then write the last episode. And I think that'd be fine, that's all it needs. And then you can maybe bring back a couple of writers that have been sort of written really good episodes in previous series. Maybe I'm thinking somebody like Sarah Dollard, or Jamie Mathieson, or Peter Harness, people from the sort of Capaldi era mainly, sort of more recent writers that did a really, really good job in their stories, but then Chris decided to go all starting new with the writers and not really bringing anybody back. So I think that would be really good to see if that is the case. So yes, more new writers would be good to see, or more guest writers that's not Chris Chibnall would be good to see in Series 12. The third thing I'd love to see in Series 12 is kind of a sort of solution to a problem, really, I think, that was in Series 11, was the issue of the companions, and the companions not having anything to do because there's too many of them and not enough screen time and dialogue and things to do generally. And so what I'd like to see is not having every companion in every single episode. Vary it up. Have an episode where you've just got the Doctor and Graham, or the Doctor and Yaz, or something like that, and like just find, I know it might be a little bit difficult to find legitimate and reasonable reasons as to get rid of companions for episodes and then bring them back or whatever, but if you can find a way of doing it, it will just make it much easier to develop the characters and give them more story. Chris has basically said that yes, Yaz didn't have much story in Series 11 and that she'll have a lot more in Series 12, so that's already promising. But I just think by sort of having episodes that focus more on one or two companions rather than having all three in there will really just develop them all better throughout the series. And I think just therefore make it sort of more enjoyable and more satisfying as a story, as you're really able to delve deep into each of these three companions, because there is a fair amount there that could be tackled, I think, just with the amount that, well, Series 11 needs to do, introducing a whole new era and a new Doctor and everything, but also just having so many of them made it so difficult to be able to establish that. So yeah, I think if we could just have that more varied, that not every single episode has to have every single companion, it would make for better development characters and more enjoyable stories, I think, as well. So that would be something I'd love to see in Series 12. Now, number 4 is probably another fairly common request that people have been giving in the last sort of series or two, is two-parters. Bring back a two-parter and a cliffhanger, an exciting epic story is what I want to see in Series 12. Give us a couple of two-parters, one in the middle of the series, and have an episode 9, episode 10 two-part finale. Wouldn't we love to see that again? Because I think Series 11 lacked cliffhangers in it. Of course, it kind of had cliffhangers in the first couple of episodes, but they weren't really cliffhangers that were ever actually sort of any jeopardy behind any of them or anything like that. You always knew it was going to be easily resolved. It was just a way of leading one episode into another, essentially. So if we could have even just for a finale, have a big epic Dalek two-parter to close out the series, and whether Jodie regenerates or not, it's not a matter. But just to have those sort of, there's just a lot more you can do. You can really expand on a story. You're less limited in the time frame, having sort of 2 episodes to be able to explore a big idea or a big concept or whatever. And so I think, yeah, just by bringing in, even if it's just a single two-parter or maybe a couple of them in those 10 episodes, would really just add a lot to the sort of, I think the series as a whole, and just kind of give that sort of big story you're looking forward to and are really excited for, is that big two-parter that's going to close out the series, or the big mid-series two-part story with the Weeping Angels or something like that, you know? I think that is just what really kind of would engage and grab people a bit more, rather than just having what feels like filler story after filler story after filler story throughout a series, which is what a lot of Series 11 felt like, unfortunately. So I think two-parters would solve that problem, give us more to look forward to and get excited about, bigger stories, more epic stories, better cliffhangers and everything like that, and I think it just all throw together to make a more exciting series. And then finally, something that I asked for Series 11 and didn't get, so I'm gonna ask for it again as number 5, my final thing. It is a proper story arc, an actually interesting story arc that flows throughout the series and has the big conclusion at the end of the series. Stephen Moffat was better at this. Had it, Series 5 is the obvious example of where there was a massive sort of interconnected storyline which really worked very effectively throughout each of the episodes and created an exciting finale to conclude it all. But then Series 11 had absolutely none of it. That pretty much every story was a single individual story, and that can work for a series maybe, but I think in the age that we live with TV at the moment, where it's very serialised, it's very much people want a reason to keep coming back and keep binging it and keep watching it, to keep finding out what's going on and following a plot thread that runs throughout the series. And so even just introducing something in episode 1 that doesn't have to be tackled every single week, but just sort of is brought up from time to time and then sort of built to a conclusion in a big 2-part finale, is what really will just draw in an audience a lot more and get people excited and looking forward to and theorising about the show, because that's what we all love to do as fans. We love to kind of predict and try and work out what's going to happen. You think back to Missy in Series 8, who's Missy? We spent weeks and weeks theorising about who that could be or what the hybrid is in Series 9 as well, and everything around that. And then sort of the Vault, who was in the Vault in Series 10 as well, and it's just, there's lots of these different things that can really sort of bring fans together and get everybody really excited and have big moments with a story arc. And so when you take that away completely, we saw in Series 11 that, for me, it didn't work that well for that very reason. It meant the finale didn't feel like a finale, it just felt like another episode and then the series ended. That's the problem. that if you don't build up to a finale, then a finale doesn't become a finale. It just becomes the end, the last episode of the series and nothing else. And so I think that that's another thing that Series 12 can benefit from massively. So yes, there's my list of 5 things that I would do to improve Doctor Who Series 12 and make it, or to improve Doctor Who and make Series 12 a brilliant series. Whether we get any of them, we'll have to wait and see, probably for quite a while to find out, but fingers crossed at least some of those are ticked off the list in the future. But what about you guys? Have you got a list of 5 things, or however many things that you'd love to see from Series 12, things that could be improved from Series 11 just to make Doctor Who that bit better? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. But other than that guys, remember to hit that like button, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you again very soon for another one. Goodbye.